yeah, regardless.
Matt, anything to plug you're working on right now, or
No,
just say the magazine?
I still have a job. I'd feel guilty. What'd you have for lunch?
Subway.
Today? No.
Ray, what are you gonna plug?
Well, I don't want to promise anything, but maybe next week, Scroll number 4 should be out.
All right.
So go ahead and check that out. It's gonna be December, whether or not next week or not. But yeah, that's really fun.
You want to tease us by telling us what's in it?
Not the cover subject.
Ray will never tell me what's in it until
Yeah.
it comes out. That's a running joke. He's a dick.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
I can tell you that. I'll reveal one article.
Okay.
Street Fighter 2 for Game Boy.
Oh man.
I want to read that.
Yeah.
A hush fell over the podcast crowd.
What the fuck?
Anyways,
Look,
guys.
I'm not showering with praise. I'll say that.
I can say Scroll's an awesome magazine. You guys should buy it. Kat?
I already.
Oh God, yeah.
You were butting in. I just wanted to know.
I do that.
Quit butting in. Anyways, thanks a lot for listening, guys. I want to say we have at least 2 more podcasts before the break coming up, and I have a very special Christmas episode that I still have to plan. So look forward to that. You'll learn about us and about, well, maybe something about yourself. So please listen. And thanks again. Bye.
Hello, Retronauts, and welcome to your official podcast, Retronauts. It's for you. It's the week of December 21st, 22nd, something like that.
18th?
Yes, somewhere around there. It's mid-December, late December, almost Christmas. This is our last podcast for the year, so enjoy it while you can. This week we're going to be talking about
Old video games.
Handheld video games.
Oh.
Old handheld video games and new and future handheld video games. It's the whole handheld genre, so to speak. I'm your host, Jeremy Parrish, also known as Time Magazine's Man of the Year. And with me here this week, we have...
Jen Frank, Community Manager and Time Magazine's Lady of the Year.
Chris Kohler, Wired Magazine's Man of the Year.
I don't think that's the case.
That
really.
actually is true. No, it's in the next issue. Cover shot of me. It was going to be Uma Thurman, but we bumped her.
I'm not buying that issue.
Okay.
Do you have metallic and neon ink all over you?
I have.
Otherwise, it's just not Wired.
Unfortunately, this is an audio podcast, but yes, I assure your readers that I have metallic ink all over me.
God.
No, I mean in the magazine cover.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
And this is Sam Kennedy, the editor-in-chief of 1UP.
Yeah, sorry, Sam. We're not really giving you a good first impression for our jackass circus.
But welcome.
Retard rodeo.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Speak for
Retronauts.
yourself, Man of the Year.
Last week, Square Enix announced that Dragon Quest IX will be coming to the Nintendo DS. And that might not sound retro to you until you stop and realize that basically every Dragon Quest game is pretty much the same as the first.
Right. They put out new ones, and they're still automatically retro.
That's right. It's retro by default.
Yeah.
But it's also it is kind of important because it means it's very significant for handheld games, for handheld systems. They're developing a sense of respectability that they've never had before. And it's kind of interesting to think about what that means for classic gaming, because lately portable systems have been kind of the last bastion of classic games and classic style games, aside from compilations. You know, you can get your compilations or your virtual console downloads on consoles, but handhelds are where you go to find new games that have that, 16-bit feel to them. And, with legitimate franchises, major franchises actually continuing themselves and not just spinning off on handhelds now, it's a new game, I think. So we're going to kind of talk about that, and we're also going to talk about Dragon Quest. So, let's begin.
what did you guys think of the news that about like last week?
It was a surprise.
Crazy,
I expected it to be. I expected the announcement last week to be Dragon Quest IX for Wii. I thought it was going to be like a big,
Really?
yeah, a big surprise. We don't believe in PlayStation 3 kind of message, but I didn't expect it to be that drastic. We don't believe in PlayStation.
You know,
3.
I didn't either. Like you could have asked. I didn't see it coming at all. At all. Like a game of that caliber, like a huge new franchise installment in a franchise like that.
Well,
coming
not just a franchise, but the biggest franchise in Japan.
Right.
I mean,
think that's the thing.
Aside from like brain training,
right? Like people
nothing sells
don't.
that much.
A lot. I don't think people in the States like really realize the significance of this. Like this is like Halo coming to GBA or something.
Yeah,
This
this is the
like,
biggest. This was the biggest selling PlayStation 2 title out of everything in Japan.
Right.
Wow.
Well, Dragon Quest 8 was.
But
Dragon Quest 8,
But
Dragon Quest-
Dragon Quest 7 sold
Yeah.
better than anything else on PlayStation, didn't it?
Right, yeah.
It was 4 million copies.
Yeah, and
it
Dragon
looked-
Quest
it
8
looked
went
terrible,
down on
too.
PlayStation 2, dropped from 4 million to just over
To
3
a
million.
mere 3 million.
To a mere 3 million, being the only 3 million selling game on PlayStation 2. And now what it's going to do is it's probably going to go back up to 4 on the DS.
right.
Right, because everyone in Japan, especially, wants a DS.
Yeah,
that's what people are buying.
Yeah. I would venture to say that a lot of people who might have bought Dragon Quest games in the past didn't buy Dragon Quest 8 and to a lesser extent Dragon Quest 7 just because of just the stuff that Nintendo's been talking about of video game systems getting too complicated. As retro as Dragon Quest 8 was, it's not inconceivable that a whole bunch of people who middle-aged housewives and stuff who might have played Dragon Quest 6 on the Super Nintendo didn't want to get the PlayStation 2 version, didn't own a PlayStation 2, had no interest in getting it. Now with the DS, it brings the game back to that audience.
Although it's interesting because the one on the DS, it isn't quite as tied to its roots as these others have been with their the battle system is different now and whatnot. And it's like, so I do think that not only was it that I do think that there was an element of like, yeah, Dragon Quest was getting stale. Dragon Quest 7, it was nice for like the, I guess, nostalgia factor of it all, and I played it, but it was like, wow, these battles are getting kind of stale.
Yeah, it's interesting because the upcoming Dragon Quest Monsters Joker for DS actually looks more like a traditional Dragon Quest game than Dragon Quest 9 does. Dragon Quest 9 is really, really different. It's 4-player multiplayer, and it apparently is more of an action RPG. So instead of taking turns and fight, heal, you fight, someone else fights, and then you have a third person over there on Wi-Fi who's healing for you.
It's interesting you mentioned that because when you look at the timing of this announcement, that they made this announcement right before Dragon Quest Monsters Joker goes on sale, which is right before the new year, which is the biggest selling time for video games in Japan. And so what they're doing is in telling people, hey, go out, buy a Nintendo DS, get Dragon Quest Monsters Joker with it, get ready because Dragon Quest is on Nintendo DS from now on. So they probably just pushed sales of Dragon Quest Joker up by a considerable amount. I mean, I could see that doing
as if it
over
wasn't
$1 million.
already going to do really well.
Right. It was probably it might have done on the level of like a Final Fantasy 3, but now it could do even
And that
more
was what,
because
like
it has all this hype around it.
800,000?
It was 800,000.
So that's still pretty respectable. But yeah.
I'm curious. Did you guys have like what's your history with the Dragon Quest series? Because I'm like outside of 7 and the original.
Yeah,
like
I've really only ever played the original. Actually, I bought it, on NES. Nintendo Power did their big thing. It was published by Nintendo, and that was
See,
that was about as much as I played. Really,
You might want to go a little more into that, just because it's an interesting story.
Right? Yeah, actually, Dragon Quest came out in Japan in 1987. No, in 1986. So yeah, this was its 20th anniversary. But it didn't make it to America until 1989. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. And it was kind of slow in coming over because I think Americans just weren't really into the RPG thing, and Nintendo decided to pick up that and Final Fantasy both and publish them here themselves. I think hoping to kind of build that big RPG fan base that was developing in Japan, because Dragon Quest was not immediately successful in Japan. It took about a year for it to catch on, and then when Dragon Quest 2 came out, all of a sudden that was a monster. So there was kind of this slow building sensation over there, and I think Nintendo kind of realized that and decided, well, we should try to do the same thing in America, and it didn't really
And it
work
flopped badly. Yeah.
They printed like 1 million copies of the game and ended up giving away half of those, at least I'm sure, free with Nintendo Power subscriptions, which is
Yeah.
It's
a
interesting.
massive
I didn't
failure. But
realize.
I actually paid money for Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
If only I had known.
See, I thought it was kind of a big deal when it originally came out, but maybe that's
It
just
seemed
because
like
I
it.
was reading Nintendo
Right.
Power.
Nintendo
and
Power made
whatever.
it look big. That was
Right.
that was the magic of the whole
Yeah.
in-house magazine thing, because they could really hype something up. Final Fantasy, they had an amazing amount of hype behind that with the whole like travel the world and find crystals contest. And
Yep, and the strategy
the
guide.
strategy
for Nintendo
guide.
Power.
Yep. That was
Which was
actually
sent to
the
every Nintendo Power
first
subscriber.
strategy guide I
Third.
ever saw in. Really?
Super Mario Brothers 3, Ninja Gaiden 2, Final Fantasy, and then one on 4-player sports games.
It's alarming.
Just
you
to
know this.
reinforce the. I know. I am just a fountain of random 80s Nintendo trivia. Thank you.
Well done.
So then, what happened then with so Final Fantasy? Well, actually, it was mainly because 7, but I mean, it was interesting that Final Fantasy for all these years became like the big RPG here. Yet in Japan, it was still I mean, Final Fantasy was huge over there still, but Dragon Quest was the RPG over there. And it was just interesting.
Well, over
Well-
there. Oh, go ahead, please.
I know my first experience with Final Fantasy VII was on the PC. So I don't know if that
Did
changes.
you like it?
I liked it. Yeah,
Really?
I was like, wow,
you're
this
the
is
first
like.
person I've met that played
Yeah.
the PC version.
Well, no, because my friend Ryan, and he totally loaned me Final Fantasy VII because he knew that I was playing point-and-click adventure games, and he was like, "Well,
Sorry. For
This
you.
is one step
No.
up.
yeah." He was like, "Well, why don't you try this? See what you think of this?" And I was like, "Wow, this is like totally a new and different experience, and the story's so good."
Okay, that's.
But why do they
that's
keep saying ... That's like such a weird thing to say in dialogue. I don't know.
See, I think most people who played it on PC were actually PC gamers who were familiar with PC RPGs.
Right.
And they played Final Fantasy VII and were like,
Yeah.
this is crap. This is
What do you